all brings us together in a way that sometimes I think modern society, with all its technology, is maybe not allowing for that personal connection.
Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, please be seated. The 2015 Hawaii State House of Representatives opening day ceremonies will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, during the entrance of the House members, please hold your applause until all members have entered. Mark M. Nakashima, Hamakua, North Hilo, South Hilo. Clift Tsuji, Kealkaha, Hilo, Panaeva, Waikea. Richard H.K. Onishi, Hilo, Kea'au, Curtistown, Volcano. Joy A. San Buenaventura, Puna. Richard P. Cregan, Na'alehu, Ocean View, Captain Cook, Kealakekua, Kailua Kona. Nicole E. Lowen, Kailua Kona, Polualoa, Kalaoa, Honokohau. Cindy Evans, North Kona, North Kohala, South Kohala. Joseph M. Suki, Kahakaloa, Waihe'e, Wai'ehu, Pu'uohala, Wailuku, Waikapu. Justin H. Woodson, Kahalui, Pu'unene, Old Sand Hills, Mawilani. Angus L. K. McKelvey, West Maui, Ma'alaya, North Kihei. Kaniela Ing, Kihei, Wailea, McKenna. Kyle T. Yamashita, Sprecklesville, Pukalani, Makawao, Kula, Keokea, Ulupalakua, Kahului. Derek S. K. Kawakami, Hanalei, Princeville, Kailua, Anahola, Kapa'a, Wailua. James Kunane Tokioka, Wailua Homesteads, Hanamalu, Lihue, Puhi, Old Koloa Town, Omao. D. Morikawa, Ni'ihau, Lehua, Koloa, Waimea. Gene Ward, Hawaii Kai, Kalama Valley. Mark J. Hashem, Haheone, Kuli'o'o, Niu Valley, Aina Haina, Waialae, Kahala. Bertrand Kobayashi, Waialae, Kahala, Diamond Head, Kaimuki, Kapahulu. Calvin K. Y. Say, St. Louis Heights, Palolo, Maunalani Heights, Wilhelmina Rise, Kaimuki. Scott Y. Nishimoto, Kapahulu, Makali, Mo'ili'ili. Tom Brower, Waikiki, Ala Moana. Isaac W. Choi, Manoa, Punahou, University, Mo'ili'ili. Della Al-Baladi, Makiki, Tantalus, Papakolea, Makali, Pawa, Manoa. Sylvia Luke, Makiki, Punch Bowl, Nu'uanu, Dowsett Highlands, Pacific Heights, Paoa. Scott K. Psyche, McCully, Kaheka, Kaka'ako, Downtown. Takashi Ono, Nu'uanu, Liliha, Pu'unui, Aleva Heights. John M. Mizuno, Kalihi Valley, Kamehameha Heights, Lower Kalihi. Carl Rhodes, Kalihi, Palama, Iwilei, Chinatown. Romy M. Cachola, Sand Island, Mokoea, Kapalama, Kalihi Kai. Aaron Ling Johansson, Moanalua, Red Hill, Foster Village, Aiea, Fort Shafter, Moanalua Gardens, Aliyamanu, Lower Pearl Ridge. Linda Ichiyama, Moanalua Valley, Salt Lake, Aliyamanu. Sam Satoru Kong, Aiea. Greg Takayama, Pearl City, Waimalu, Pacific Palisades. Roy M. Takumi, Pearl City, Manana, Waipio. Beth Fukumoto Chang, Mililani Mauka, Mililani. Ryan I. Yamane, Mililani, Waipio Gentry, Waikele. Henry J. C. Aquino, Waipahu. Ty J. K. Cullen, Royal Kunia, Village Park, Waipahu, Makakilo, West Lock. Bob McDermott, Eva Beach, Eva Gentry, Iroquois Point. Matthew S. Lopresti, Eva Villages, Eva Beach, Eva Gentry, Ocean Point, West Lock. Sharon E. Har, Kapolei, Makakilo. Andrea P. L. Tupola, Eva Villages, Kalailoa, Honokaihale, Nanakai Gardens, Ko'olina, Kahe Point, Nanakuli, Lualualei, Maili. Joe Jordan, Waianae, Makaha, Makua, Maili. Lauren Kealohilani Matsumoto, Schofield, Mokuleia, Waialua, Kunia, Waipio Acres, Mililani. Marcus R. Oshiro, Wahiawa, Whitmore Village. Feki Poha, Wailua, Haleiwa, Pupukea, Kahuku, Laie, Haula, Waihole, Waikane, Sunset Beach, Punaluu, Ka'ava. Jarrett Keoho Kalole, Kaneohe, He'ia, Ahuimanu, Kahalu, Haiku Valley, Makualoe. Ken Ito, Kaneohe, Manawili, Olomana. Cynthia Thielen, Kailua, Kaneohe Bay. Chris Lee, Kailua, Waimanalo. Members of the audience, people of the state of Hawaii, this is your House of Representatives. Please be seated.
The House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii is now called to order. Aloha. My name is Mark Nakashima, representative from the 1st House District, and I am honored to follow decades-old tradition of the Hawaii House of Representatives by presiding over opening day ceremonies. Iko Momai. On behalf of the members of the House, welcome, and thank you for taking time to be here as we take our oaths of office and pledge to do our very best for the people of Hawaii. At this time, I call upon Ms. Kelai to lead us in the national anthem and Hawaii Pono'i. Thereafter, Daniel and Gavin Yamane, sons of our own Representative Ryan Yamane, and students at Marinol School will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Will the members and audience please rise?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we held at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Hawaii ponoi nanai komoi kalani ali ke ali makua lani e kameha meha e na kaua e pali me ka ihe makua lani e kameha meha e na kaua e pali me ka ihe.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Kalai, Daniel, and Gavin. We are honored today to have the Very Reverend Walter Brownridge, Dean of the Cathedral of St. Andrew, to deliver this morning's invocation. Will the Sergeant at Arms please escort Father Brownridge to the rostrum?
Can you be seated, please? Thank you. Please don't be nervous. I won't talk long, but I'd like you to be more comfortable. Mr. Speaker Suki and the leadership of this House, Democratic and Republican leaders, all the members, government, distinguished public officials, family members, and guests, aloha mai kako. I just want to begin with this week when we remember the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, a brief quote that I think sums up the call of all of us, but especially those who are in positions of leadership in our civic society. Dr. King said on his last Sunday sermon these words: Through our scientific and technological genius, we have made this world a neighborhood and have yet not had the ethical commitment to make it a brotherhood and sisterhood. But somehow, in some way, we have got to do this. We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters or perish together as fools. We are caught up in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be, and you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the way God's universe is made. This is the way it is structured. Epuli kako, let us pray. O God, the fountain of wisdom, whose will is good and gracious, and whose law is truth, give grace to these your public servants, that you may so guide and bless our representatives assembled in this legislative body, and for all who deliberate in this beautiful state of Hawaii, that they may enact such laws that shall please you. And grant to all our leaders the wisdom and foresight to provide for the common good and welfare of all your people, that the anxieties and challenges of economic security, care for your creation, the education of young minds, and the challenge of housing and shelter shall be met with courage and compassion. May their work together be full of comity to fulfill your obligations as an ohana of these islands. And may their service reflect the highest and noblest values of Hawaii, and that the greater good be achieved. And all this to the glory of your holy name, the blessed and holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Father Brownridge. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Chair, I have a House resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Mr. Clerk, please read House Resolution number 1.
House Resolution number 1, electing the temporary chair of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, that the Honorable Mark M. Nakashima, representative from the 1st District, be and is hereby declared the duly elected temporary chair of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature. This resolution is offered by Representatives Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Representative Saiki.
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of said resolution.
Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the House Resolution number 1 be adopted. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Motion is carried. Members of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature, thank you. I am honored to serve as your temporary chair this morning. Let's commence with the order of the day. Mr. Brian L. Takashita is appointed to serve as temporary clerk. The Committee on Credentials report, Representative Rhodes was previously appointed to chair the Committee on Credentials. Representative Fukumoto served as the committee vice chair, and Representatives Mizuno and Saiki served as members. Representative Rhodes, do you have the report of the Committee on Credentials?
Mr. Chair, the report of the Committee on Credentials has been submitted to the temporary clerk for action.
Mr. Clerk, are you in receipt of the report of the Committee on Credentials?
Mr. Chair, I am in receipt of said report.
Thank you. Representative Rhodes.
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of the report of the Committee on Credentials.
Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the report on the Committee of Credentials be adopted. Any discussion? If not, those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carried. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Aquino. Ms. Bellotti. Mr. Brower.
Here.
Mr. Cachola. Ms. Carroll.
Excused.
Mr. Choi. Mr. Cregan. Mr. Cullen. Ms. Evans. Ms. Fukumoto Chang. Ms. Har. Mr. Hashem. Ms. Ichiyama. Mr. Ing. Mr. Ito. Mr. Johansson. Ms. Jordan. Mr. Kawakami. Mr. Keoho Kalole. Mr. Kobayashi. Mr. Kong. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lopresti. Ms. Lowen. Ms. Luke. Ms. Matsumoto. Mr. McDermott. Mr. McKelvey. Mr. Mizuno. Ms. Morikawa. Mr. Nishimoto. Mr. Ono. Mr. Onishi. Mr. Oshiro. Mr. Poha. Mr. Rhodes. Mr. Saiki. Ms. San Buenaventura. Mr. Say. Mr. Suki. Mr. Takayama. Mr. Takumi. Ms. Thielen. Mr. Tokioka. Mr. Tsuji. Ms. Tupola. Mr. Ward. Mr. Woodson. Mr. Yamane. Mr. Yamashita. Mr. Chair.
Present.
Mr. Chair, 50 members are present, 1 is excused.
Thank you. Short recess.
Vice Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means. Senator Clarence Nishihara from Senate District 17, Chair of the Committee on Transportation.
Present.
Senator Gil Riviere from Senate District 23, Vice Chair of the Committee on Agriculture.
Present.
Senator Russell Ruderman from Senate District 2, Chair of the Committee on Agriculture.
Present.
Senator Maile Shimabukuro from Senate District 21, Chair of the Committee on Hawaiian Affairs.
Here. Award winner Napua
Senator Sam Sloan from Senate District 9, Minority Leader.
With special guest Carmen Hulu.
Still standing.
Senator Brian Taniguchi from Senate District 11, Majority Whip and Chair of the Committee on Higher Education and the Arts.
Here.
Senator Laura Thielen from Senate District 25, Chair of the Committee on Water and Land. Senator Jill Tokuda from Senate District 24, Chair of the Committee on Ways and Means. And Senator Glenn Wakai from Senate District 15, Chair of the Committee on Economic Development and Technology.
Present.
Mr. Chair, all 25 members are present.
Nominations are now open for the office of President of the Senate. Senator Green.
Mr. Chair, I proudly nominate Donna Mercado Kim for President of our Senate.
Senator Tokuda.
Mr. Chair, I second the nomination.
Senator Thielen.
Mr. Chair, I move that nominations be closed.
Senator Gabbard.
Mr. Chair, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Donna Mercado Kim is elected President of the Senate. At this time, the chair appoints Senators Espero and Keith Augeron to escort President Kim to the rostrum.
Aloha, and welcome to the opening of the 28th Legislature. Thank you all for joining us. Wow, only in Hawaii can you experience a legislative opening with so many flowers of aloha. On behalf of my colleagues, I would like to thank our families, our friends, and our well-wishers for these beautiful expressions. You know, these flowers bring to mind this song made popular by the folk trio Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Where have all the flowers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Where have all the flowers gone? Young girls have picked them, everyone. Oh, when will they ever learn? Oh, when will they ever learn?
While this recording dates back more than 50 years, the power of its message has not diminished with time. These lyrics got me thinking and asking, where have all our beaches gone? Where has all the Hawaiian entertainment in Waikiki gone? Where are the koa and ohia lehua trees, the fish and opihi? And when will we ever learn that once it's lost, we may not be able to get it back? From 1935 through 1975, the world tuned in to their radios to hear the voice of Webley Edwards. Each week on his Hawaii Calls broadcast, he invited the world to experience our Hawaiian Islands, our culture, our music. The show at its peak was heard over 750 stations around the globe. Fortunately, most of the Hawaii Calls programs are not lost. In fact, we will soon be realizing our goal of capturing and preserving our cultural past. You know, 2 years ago, Senator Brickwood Galutaria and I proposed establishing a Center for Hawaiian Music and Dance. And the legislature members, we appropriated funds to the Hawaii Tourism Authority, and the groundwork has been laid. Tourism Chair Gilbert Kahele and I are happy to report that we are on track to construct this facility atop the Hawaii Convention Center. It will house, preserve, and maintain our Hawaiian music of yesterday and today, and capture the stories of our talented musicians and kumuhula before their work is lost. We are doing this for the future generations, so that they too will have a lasting appreciation and understanding of our enriching heritage. With the help of the Hawaii Tourism Board Chair, Aaron Salah, our program later this morning will highlight a part of this past. You know, when Hawaii Calls opened each week with the sounds of the gentle surf on the beach at Waikiki, no one ever thought we'd be asking, where have all the sand on our beaches and our native Hawaiian forests gone, and what are we doing about it? Sadly, we are witnessing a significant depletion of sand on our famous beaches. 2 years ago, the Department of Land and Natural Resources added 24,000 cubic yards of sand to Waikiki Beach at a cost of $2 million. But a UH study found that 1/4 of the sand was gone a year later. Can you imagine how economically and environmentally devastating it will be if we cannot find an effective solution to address this problem? Which is why the Energy and Environment Chair, Mike Gabbard, and I are proposing dedicated funding using existing TAT revenues for the maintenance and restorations of beaches across the state. This bill would make available a steady source of funds to implement recommendations from a joint DLNR county study and stay vigilant in preserving our marine environment. But just as devastating is invasive species, one of the greatest threats to our agriculture, our environment, and our health and our lifestyle. We simply cannot afford to let up on our efforts to aggressively find and eradicate these pests. In this vein, I am excited that in September of 2016, the World Conservation Congress will convene for the first time in 60 years in the United States. And they have chosen Hawaii as the host for the 17th Congress. Held every 4 years, this is the world's largest and most important conservation event. It aims to improve how we manage our natural environment. And this event will give us an opportunity to showcase to the 160 member countries and 8,000 delegates from around the world Hawaii's diversity in nature, culture, conservation, and sustainability. A huge mahalo has to go out to Chipper Wickman of the Federal National Botanical Gardens on Kauai for working tirelessly on this bid for the past 10 years, as well as the Department of Land and Natural Resources, which is the lead state agency. I pose another "where have they gone" question, and that is, where have all the voters gone? In the last election, Hawaii experienced a record low voter turnout. And while this body certainly supported initiatives to encourage greater participation, we must do better to remove all the barriers and excuses. All-mail elections should accomplish that. Both Oregon and Washington have implemented vote-by-mail elections, resulting in high voter participation rates of 70 to 80%. I look to our new Judiciary Chair, Keith Gil Agaran, to move us toward all-mail ballots to be phased in over the 2016 and 2018 elections. But colleagues, all-mail elections are just the means. People must want to exercise their fundamental right to vote. So we as legislators, we must do our part by restoring the public's trust in government, by giving them reasons to register and vote. As Senate President, I pledge to continue to bring transparency and accountability to the legislative process. Government officials should be held accountable for broken promises, for miscalculations and bloated assumptions. Therefore, I propose we establish an Office of the Inspector General that would investigate complaints alleging fraud, waste, abuse, or corruption. And I've asked Government Operations Chair Donovan De La Cruz to help shepherd this legislation. I also propose that we expand mandatory ethics training to all lobbyists, members of all boards and commissions, and employees responsible for procurement, for administering state contracts, or regulating private organizations. From a financial standpoint, we have good reason to be hopeful. The backbone of our economy has been our visitor industry and our very hard-working small businesses. And despite a recent report from the Council of Revenues and other forecasts indicating that our economy may be slowing, our year-to-date tax collections are up. Tourism is experiencing consecutive months of double-digit growth in arrivals and spending, and prompting the Council of Revenues to increase their forecast by 1%, which translates to $55 million a year. But colleagues, the state and the counties continue to face many fiscal challenges. As a former city council member, and I make note that there are 5 of us here in the Senate, we must work collaboratively with all the counties in addressing homelessness, providing affordable housing, and streamlining the land use process. With the Economic Development and Technology Chair, Glenn Wakai, We believe it's time to consider giving the counties more local control over land use classifications by eliminating the Land Use Commission and overlapping operations to make the permitting process more efficient. But with more control comes greater accountability. And in that regard, the counties are urged to step up the enforcement of transient vacation rental ordinances. The state and counties are losing millions of dollars in TAT and GET revenues, money which we cannot afford to ignore. So I am looking to Ways and Means Chair Jill Tokuda to begin the discussion of whether the counties should be granted the option of enacting a 0.5% tax, provided that it is earmarked specifically for housing, transportation, road improvements, and transient vacation rentals enforcement. Hearings on this measure will allow the Transportation Committee, chaired by Clarence Nishihara, to scrutinize the rail financial plan and obtain a full accounting for the 0.5% tax surcharge the city has received thus far. Certainly, the issues facing us are daunting. So senators led by Majority Leader Kalani English have spent the last few months formulating the Senate's majority legislative program. Our focus is on energy and food resiliency, government effectiveness, and community well-being and smart growth. And this brings me to the Hawaii Health Systems Corporation. You know, HHSC is facing a $50 million shortfall for the next fiscal year and about $1 billion or more in capital improvements in the next decade. While we are on the verge of a public-private partnership for Maui, I call upon Health Chair Josh Green and Consumer and Commerce Protection Chair Roz Baker to finally resolve the HHSC issue. Human Services Chair Suzanne Chan Oakland has the challenging task of addressing our homeless population and the shortage of affordable housing, along with helping our family caregivers as they care for our kupuna. It will take all of us pulling together, the Hawaii Public Housing Authority, the counties, and the private sector to come up with viable solutions. Senators, throughout all our history, education has been the pathway to social and economic success for generations of island people. With the adoption of Acts 51 and 130, our students have since experienced unprecedented growth in our national assessment test scores in math and reading. Did you know that more students are graduating from high school, more enrolling in college, and fewer need remedial support? U.S. Secretary of Education Arne Duncan recently visited Hawaii, something that has not happened in over 20 years. And he spoke about Hawaii's performance, saying, "The progress has been extraordinary. Hawaii, by any objective measures, is one of the fastest improving states in the nation, top 5 states. But there is more work to be done. With Education Chair Michelle Kidani, we have every reason to expect more improvements in our public education system, especially given our new governor's commitment and insight." In the same light, higher education is vital in helping diversify our economy with jobs that pay a living wage for our workers. Public education is driven by the University of Hawaii system. The 3 baccalaureate campuses and 7 community colleges ensure that our people have the education they need to be ready to compete and be successful in this workforce. Note, too, that education has grown into an industry in itself. For instance, UH has brought in $400 million in research dollars in FY 2014 and is currently 12 to 15% ahead of the pace for this year. But you know, not enough is said about the vital role of our community colleges. in providing an affordable and flexible education. Their graduation rates have doubled, and students who go on to receive degrees in STEM have increased 15-fold. Students are better prepared to move on to higher degrees or succeed in the workforce. And many are finding success in Hawaii's fashion industry, which is generating more than $750 million in annual sales, $20 million in tax revenues, and 3,600 jobs with huge potential growth. Kini Zamora of Kapolei and Waianae's Ari South are shining examples of the university's role in career development. Kini was one of the top 3 finalists in season 13 of the popular and my favorite Project Runway TV series. And Ari also finished in the top 3 in season 8. Even after attending the prestigious Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, Kini said that they were teaching the same things he learned at HCC. I'm sorry that Kini and Ari could not be with us today, although they wanted to be. But with Kini and Ari joining the ranks of our Made in Hawaii businesses like Tory Richards, Iolani Sportswear, Mamo Howell, and others, Hawaii can surely compete in a fashion powerhouse and attract international students to our fashion program. The Culinary Arts program at the various community college campuses is another example of education as an industry. The advanced training being developed by the Culinary Institute of the Pacific will train students to excel in the culinary arts and restaurant management, as well as attract students from Asia, Europe, Canada, and the mainland who want to come here to learn about our regional cuisine. It is a shame, though, that this project has lagged. So Higher Education Chair Brian Taniguchi and I will work to ensure that construction begins soon on the first phase of this long-awaited facility at KCC on the slopes of Diamond Head. With renowned local chefs like Roy Yamaguchi. Roy, please stand. And Alan Wong, Russell Siu, Sam Choi, and others, this has got to be a priority. Ladies and gentlemen, the Senate is a body of highly capable and dedicated individuals, and I am humbled to serve as president. I thank you, members, for this privilege. While we represent different constituencies, we share a commitment and responsibility to do the people's business, always mindful that the voters have entrusted us with their future. The Senate stands ready and committed to collaborate with Speaker Suki and the members of the House of Representatives, with our lone Republican, Sam Sloan, with our mayors and county officials. We are eager to work with our former Senate colleagues, the new Governor David Ige, Lieutenant Governor Shan Tsutsui, and an Ige administration that is committed to putting people back to work. There is no one who better understands the state's challenges of balancing the needs of our citizens with our limited state resources than the former chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee, Governor Ige. Governor, I'm confident that together we will listen and work in the best interests of the people we represent. While I began today concerned about what Hawaii has lost over time, I am nevertheless very optimistic about our future. A future that includes the aerospace industry and space tourism championed by Senator Will Sparrow, which is projected to be a $1 million industry in Hawaii one day. Hawaii has an incredible history of achievement. We are the beneficiaries of the hard work, sacrifices, and spirit of hope of our parents and those who came before us. There is absolutely no reason why Together, we cannot continue to build on the legacy we've inherited. Hawaii's own Marcus Mariota said it best at a news conference after he accepted the prestigious Heisman Trophy. Marcus told reporters, "In Hawaii, when one person is successful, the whole state is successful." Mahalo, Marcus, for the success you have brought to our great state. We join you in thanking all the people who nurtured, mentored, and sacrificed to help you be successful, and in the process, lift us all. Marcus joins other Keiki o Ka'aina, like President Obama, Grammy Award winner Bruno Mars, Maui Shane Victorino, and a host of island people who are just as accomplished and successful in their own fields and in their own lives. I'd like to close by acknowledging the sacrifices of my mother, and in particular, my son Micah, who has been my inspiration. Yes, our children are the reasons for us to put aside partisan politics and individual differences. Let us dedicate ourselves to preserving what we treasure, to what makes Hawaii special. There is much we can do, because all is not lost yet. Colleagues, we have been given much. And as it is often quoted, to whom much is given, much is expected. The expectation is for us to work together to make Hawaii a place we can be proud to leave our children. Mahalo nui loa. At this time, the chair calls upon Senate Minority Leader Sam Sloan for his response.
Senate President Kim, Governor Ige, our military, distinguished guests, and our overburdened Hawaii taxpayers. On behalf of the entire Senate minority, aloha! You know, Madam President, following up on your theme, where have all the Republicans gone? First, let me reassure you, those of you who have been worried over the past several weeks, that I remain a Republican. I'm not switching parties. And I pledge to continue to represent the loyal but responsible opposition to harmful legislation while advocating reasonable alternative legislation to solve problems and ease the economic burdens on our citizens. You know, it has become increasingly difficult to stand up and speak out against the status quo and to call for change in Hawaii. Yet, it must be done. There are some who would silence any dissent in our state. Sometimes there are severe political, social, economic, and media consequences for speaking out. Ask former UH Chancellor Tom Apple, or me. With the new year, though, we remain hopeful with the new administration that we may actually get some positive changes. We now have a governor who was once one of us in the Senate, whom I respect, with an engineering and not a community organizing background. As the governor has said, government can't do it alone. People must get involved and do some of the heavy lifting to solve the problems that have remained with us for many years. Our job, as the Senate President indicated, is to restore and encourage the public's confidence in our process and to be more transparent and accountable ourselves while empowering our citizens. We have to do more than just talk and make speeches. We need appropriate action. The good news is we can do this. The public feels disconnected because we haven't done a good enough job to date. There haven't been consequences for bad government behavior. We have been lax in the oversight of billions of taxpayer dollars. I like the President's proposal for the Inspector General to look at these things. Now, your Senate minority offers a thoughtful, effective, 5-point action agenda for 2015. 1, economic diversification and budget reduction. 2, meaningful outcome-based education. 3, Health Connector, Obamacare, and HHSC alternatives. 4, changes to Public Utilities Commission and analysis of the proposed HECO merger. And 5, reduction in the terrible cost of living for our beleaguered residents, middle class, and poor. Your Senate minority continues to caution that Hawaii's economy overall has not turned any corner, and that many more of our citizens and small businesses are still struggling needlessly. Every national organization rates Hawaii worst in economic opportunity. We are now concerned that more than 20,000 of our active duty Army and 30,000 dependents, which may leave Hawaii causing more than $1 billion in economic loss. But our military is far more than dollars alone. They contribute to all of our society. This decision will be made outside of our state. But in Hawaii, we can improve our business climate and diversify by listening to those who have the proven ability to create jobs. Our $25 billion operating budget, in our opinion, is bloated and must be trimmed as we propose. So too our $20 billion unfunded liability. This too can be done. We must promise no new taxes. We can't throw good money after bad for the black hole that is the flawed Oahu transit fixed rail system. It is all about development and not about transportation or relieving congestion. It is $900 million over budget currently. No extension of the general excise tax should be permitted by this legislature. Not one more penny to those who purposely have misled the taxpayers of this state. Otherwise, elected officials are like enablers who assist drug addicts to become more destructive. Stop this project now and provide real transportation alternatives like hot lanes already advanced.
Madam President, can we have a short recess? Madam President, short recess, please.
Short recess subject to the call of the chair.
Our educational system in Hawaii has shortchanged the students and parents who pay for that education. We need a comprehensive financial and managerial audit of the DOE and my alma mater, the University of Hawaii. UH has said it's proud, quote, to have 52% of the students able to graduate in 6 years, unquote. That's not good enough. We can do better. The legislature must say no to continued shortfalls in DOE programs, the annual UH athletics deficit, and the Spendthrift UH Cancer Center. And yes, to more classroom teachers. Tuition must reflect actual costs, not larger salaries for coaches and vice presidents. The PUC has been without effective leadership for the past several years. Too many dockets still remain open. We have worked with the new chair, Randy Awasi, in the past, and we will support a changing mission for the PUC and an objective analysis of the planned $4 billion HECO merger. My staff member, Catherine Higa, has experienced mergers and acquisitions before, and she has already been on this task since December. The Hawaii Health Connector has sped through millions of taxpayer dollars without noticeable results or honesty in presentations. The data it provides to the legislature does not match up with federal data. It should receive no more taxpayer funds. The Medicaid computer failure may cost taxpayers up to $100 million more. The legislature has to monitor outside contracts when agencies don't, as the Senate President has done. We should continue to practice compassion, but not ignorance, in helping people truly in need while separating those who prey on others and game the system. We have to increase our residents' standard of living by reducing their burdens and costs. We can do this by food and medical GET tax relief and by advancing federal affordable cargo shipping reform of the Jones Act. The Senate minority has been cooperating with like-minded lawmakers in Alaska, Guam, and Puerto Rico. We have many other positive legislative changes. Come see us and make sure that our bills are heard. So on behalf of the Senate minority, I pledge our continued efforts to support good legislation, regardless of who introduces it, to examine and report honestly on the impact of all bills, and to work toward ending legislative exemptions for ourselves for laws we pass on to others. We celebrate our God-given liberty and our ability to change. Our goal should be not a new day, but a better day. This is not a partisan issue, and together we must navigate a different course, with a vision of how much greater Hawaii can be. Finally, this is the year of the sheep, and my hope and advice is that the taxpayers and voters of Hawaii will stop acting like sheep and be more independent and hold all of us more accountable. So, on behalf of the minority, I say God bless our armed forces, our men and women, and the United States of America. Aloha.
Thank you, Senator Sloan. At this time, the chair will call for a short recess. Short recess subject to the call of the chair.
of the State of Hawaii to the best of my ability. Congratulations to all of you.
Representative Saiki.
Mr. Chair, I have a House resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Mr. Clerk, please read resolution number 2.
House Resolution Number 2, electing the Speaker and Vice Speaker of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, that the Honorable Joseph M. Suki, representative from the 8th District, and the Honorable John M. Mizuno, representative from the 28th District, be elected as Speaker and Vice Speaker, respectively, of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii. This resolution is offered by Representatives Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Representative Saiki.
Mr. Chair, I move for the adoption of said resolution.
Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the House Resolution number 2 be adopted. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion is carried. The following representatives are appointed to escort the Honorable Joseph Suki to the rostrum. Representatives Saiki, Evans, Beth Fukumoto Chang, and Andrea Tupola. Members of the House of Representatives, I present the Honorable Joseph M. Suki, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature.
Well, before I begin, I hope you enjoyed the show from the Maui group, Maui no Koe. And before I proceed with my speech, I want to dedicate this speech to Representative Millie Carroll. And I know that she probably would have some misgivings of this speech, knowing her, but wish her well and on the road to recovery. Thank you very much. All right, members, I thank you for your vote of confidence and support. I pledge to you that I will execute my duties and responsibilities with fairness, consistent with Hawaii's Constitution and statutes. The following representatives are appointed to escort the Honorable John Mizuno to the washroom. Representative Scott Saiki, and Beth Fukumoto Chang. Will you please proceed? I present to you the Vice Speaker, John Mizuno. Mizuno. Representative Psyche.
Mr. Speaker, I have a House resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Mr. Clerk, would you please read the House Resolution number 3?
House Resolution number 3, electing the officers of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, that Brian L. Takeshita, Kevin R. Kuroda, Rupert Juarez, and Leonard Peressa Jr. be elected as Chief Clerk, Sergeant-at-Arms, Assistant Clerk, and Assistant Sergeant-at-Arms, respectively, of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii. This resolution is offered by Representatives Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Thank you very much. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of said resolution.
And Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It is moved and seconded that House Resolution number 3 be adopted. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. The motion is carried. Mr. Takeshita, Mr. Kuroda, Mr. Juarez, Mr. Peressa, please approach the rostrum for the oath of office. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Hawaii, and that I will faithfully discharge my duties as an officer of the House of Representatives of the State of Hawaii to the best of my ability. Please turn and face the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the following officers of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature: Mr. Brian Takeshita, the Chief Clerk; Mr. Kevin Kuroda, the Sergeant-at-Arms; Mr. Rupert Juarez, the Assistant Clerk; and Mr. Leonard Peressa, the Assistant Sergeant-at-Arms. Members. All right, thank you very much. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I have a House resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Mr. Clerk, would you please read House Resolution number 4?
House Resolution number 4, acknowledging and recognizing the caucus leaders and naming the chairs, vice chairs, and members of the standing committees of the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature. This resolution is offered by Representatives Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Okay, thank you very much. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of
Thank you
said
very
resolution.
much. Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that House Resolution number 4 be adopted. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those say no, motion is passed. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I have a House concurrent resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Clerk, please read House Concurrent Resolution number 1.
House Concurrent Resolution number 1, relating to recess days for the regular session of 2015. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, the Senate concurring, that pursuant to Article 3, Section 10 of the Hawaii State Constitution, the dates of the mandatory recess for the regular session of 2015 are hereby determined to be the 26th and 27th days of February and the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th days of March, on which dates the regular session of 2015 shall be recessed, and be it further resolved that pursuant to Article 3, Section 10 of the Hawaii State Constitution, the dates of the recesses other than the dates of the mandatory recess for the regular session of 2015 are hereby determined to be the 27th and 30th days of January, the 11th day of February, the 9th and 11th days of March, the 13th and 15th days of April, and the 4th and 6th days of May, on which dates the regular session of 2015 shall be recessed. This resolution is offered by Representative Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Thank you very much, Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of said resolution.
Thank you very much, Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that the House concurrent resolution number 1 be adopted. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. All those in favor? Opposed? Nay. Motion is carried. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I have a second House concurrent resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Mr. Clerk, please read House Resolution number 2.
House Concurrent Resolution number 2, requesting the Governor to address the legislature assembled in joint session. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, the Senate concurring, that the two houses of the legislature assemble in joint session in the chambers of the House of Representatives at 10 a.m. on Monday, January 26, 2015, for the purpose of receiving such address or greetings from the Governor of Hawaii as he should be pleased to make, and be it further resolved that a duly certified copy of this concurrent resolution be transmitted to the Honorable David Ige, Governor of the State of Hawaii. This resolution is offered by Representatives Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Thank you very much. Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of said resolution.
Thank you very much. Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that House concurrent resolution number 2 be adopted. Any discussion, members? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed say no. Motion is carried. All right, members, recess.
Ladies and gentlemen, our next performer has been delighting audiences for nearly 4 decades with his stand-up performances, comedy albums, and musical parodies. He's played to sold-out crowds on both sides of the Pacific Ocean and has continuously maintained a presence on the radio and television. The House of Representatives is very pleased to present Hawaii's comedy legend, Frank De Lima.
Hello, everybody. My name is Frank De Lima. My full name is Frank Wilcox Napuake Kaulike De Lima, Jr. 2 years ago, I was asked to come here and do a pule. And today, I was asked to be pupule. 2 letters can change the meaning completely. Now, you know, as a comedian, I'm celebrating 40 years as a comedian in Hawaii. And, oh, thank you. 35 of those years, I visited the schools, and I'm still visiting the schools. I got about 300 on my schedule, and it takes 2 years to do it. Then I start all over again. And a fun story that I'd like to share, a couple. I was at one of the schools, and the kindergartners were sitting up front. And I asked one little girl, I said, do you know what a comedian is? And her face lit up, her eyes got big, expression came from her voice, and she said, yes, I have one as a pet. So they're still calling me a chameleon. I was at another school, and a 5th grader came up to me, very well-spoken kid. I asked him, he's a straight-A student. I was at Waipahu Elementary, and being of Filipino ancestry, okay, his background, he said, Frank De Lima, I'm impressed with your Filipino Christmas. And he said, you know, a lot of those words that you use are real, and they're in 3 different dialects. Where did you learn it? I said, when I was your age and younger, and my tata across the street, he would teach me the names of plants, like, let's see, Soloyot and Kalamungay. And then the ladies down at the Filipino Catholic Club would do festivals, and they teach me the names like of the desserts: budbud, peche peche, badoya, koscoron, bibingka, suman. And then Damien High School would have festivals, and the Filipino booth would have food like daring and darang, And so I just used all of this in the song. And he said, well, do you know the word for squid? And I said, oh, no, I don't know that one. He said, puset, P-U-S-I-T. I said, well, thank you for teaching me that. And then he says, Frank De Lima, what is this? And I said, well, it looks like a poussette swimming. He said, yes. And what is this? And I said, well, I don't know. He said, a poussette. Poussette, a poussette. For those that didn't get it, a poussette. Now, people don't really know about me, so I'd like to tell you my history, okay? Very short. And I'm going to start from the very, very beginning. Oh, Governor, hi, how are you? When you and sneak in, shucks, I had the opportunity. Chaganju, nihe debedu. Okinawan. Okay. So I'm going to start from the very, very beginning. Malamamaya oi. Meke aloha mai kai pumehana no hoi. Alamoana Shopping Center. Ho'omakaukou. Long time ago, no more nothing but the ocean. No more such thing as Diamond Head or Waikiki. Then suddenly there was the sound of one explosion. From the volcano came the land of Hawaii. Hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then one day canoes filled with Hawaiians singing do-what-dee-dee-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-doo. They sailed 1,000 miles across the sea, singing do-what-dee-dee-dee-dee-dum-dee-dee-doo. They ruled the land for a long time. And then a very important person was born. They named him Kamehameha. He grew up to be King Kamehameha, king of all of Hawaii. And then the first white man arrived, Captain Cook, and they cooked him. I don't make this up, this is history. After Captain Cook came the missionaries, and the missionaries saw that the land was fertile. They needed people to work the land. So they brought over the Chinese, Japanese, Filipinos, Portuguese, Puerto Ricans, Okinawans, and many, many others. And then I was born. 11:05 at night, St. Francis Hospital. My mom's name Pearl, my dad's name Frank. And I attended Cathedral Grade School, taught by Franciscan sisters from Manitowoc, Wisconsin. They were farm girls, big women. They could pick up the cow and milk them. One of the nuns, when they were talking about vocations, was talking about priesthood, talking about, being firefighters or whatever it was. And I chose to try for the seminary because I come from a very strong Catholic family. And so I did, but I didn't make it because I have a very, very unique gift called daydreaming. So I missed half of what was going in class all through elementary school. And they call that ADD today. Back then they gave you a slap. Today they give you pills. But at any rate, so I went to Damien, And I never forget the first day I walked into class, Brother Rocks, the football coach, 6'4", sees this 5'10" and a half Hawaiian Portuguese boy walk in. He said, "You're playing football." Oh, man, I'm all excited. And so I go home. "Ma, brother asked me to play football." And she said, "No, you cannot play." And I don't blame her. Because when I was 7 years old, Dad, being an athlete, took me up to Booth Park, and the Police Activity League invited all the kids from the neighborhood to come and play baseball. And nobody knew how. All ages. I was 7 on the bat. The pitcher was 13 years old, big Hawaiian kid from Papakolea. He didn't know how to pitch, I didn't know how to bat. I got knocked out that day. Could you imagine my mom? She must have went ballistic when she saw that. Well, I didn't want to play baseball for a while. 10 years old, they took us for swimming lessons. Booth Park Summer Fun. And so we caught the bus and went down to the natatorium. Okay? Today, the kids are lucky. They teach them the arm, then they teach them the kicking, then they put the floater on, and then they do the breathing. Back then, they line you up and push you in. And the natatorium is seawater, pool. You cannot see in that thing. And my imagination is so crazy. And I just had watched The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I saw the creature in there. And as they were pushing guys in, I was like at the end of the row, and I'm going, "Oh no, I don't like. And I didn't shut up. I swallowed so much water, I almost drowned at swimming lessons, ladies and gentlemen. Then it was 8th grade basketball. And I did so well at practice. Dad was there at every one. Then it was the first game. And 5 minutes into the game, I come down from the basket. My foot goes like this. The other guy come down, bang, right on my foot. That's it for the rest of the season. So when brother asked me to play football, I told my mom, she says, "No, you cannot. You got knocked out, you almost drowned, you broke your ankle, you're going to die, you play football." So I became cheerleader. Not that kind cheerleader. Damien High School was the first school in Hawaii to have a pep squad made up of all the men from Damien. I had to look for guys that are big like me, you know, at least 5'10", 5'11", 6 feet. The guys that didn't make it into football, and for one reason or another. So I got them. There was 8 of us. And we lifted weights with the football team. And we had to because the girls that we got from our sister school, some of them were from Waianae, you know. We had to bench press at least 275, man. Got to pick those girls up, man, put them on our shoulders. First school in Hawaii. And everybody else copied. We copied from the mainland. That was my years at Damien. In senior year, I still wanted to become a priest, so I took the test again. During the days at Damien, the brothers were excellent at helping me to focus. And that's the word that I always teach the kids in the schools. I said that the only way that they can really learn is if they focus. If they have problems, they got things clouding their mind when they come to school, get it solved right away. The brain has to be clear, and they have to focus. I tell them to look at the teacher's mouth. The mouth is moving. That means words are coming out, going to their ears. They're hanging out by their ears. And if the brain is at Ala Moana Park, the words have nowhere to go, they're going to fall off. And then what? Then the tests come, they cannot pass them. So I said, you got to have that brain clear so the words can go in. Once they're in, you got to understand the words. If you don't understand the words are useless. So then you go and you tell your teacher, keep the communication open. So I tell them about communicating with the teachers. And the teachers might give them extra work. That's why some kids say, I don't like to tell my teacher, but I don't get extra work. I said, no. A kid that wants to have a career someday. A career is when you go out and you choose what you want, not scrambling for whatever you can get. And everybody has that opportunity to do it. But they have to remember, do the work that is assigned to them, even if it's extra. Don't be afraid of it. Because a boss that hires you one day doesn't want a person that's afraid of work. And then I tell them, once you get the words in your brain, then you got to keep them up there. And that's that big word that kids shake at. It's called homework, research, going to the library. I said that has to be done so that the words stay up there, so that when you take the test, you say the most awesome feeling for any student, I got this. I know all the answers to these questions. Most awesome feeling. And I said, and you can be that person. And then I go on and say, you pass these tests, then you're going to go out into the world because you had graduated from high school. Your talent will take you either on the job training because your talent takes you to that career, or it may take you to college or graduate school, depending on what you can do and what you need. But the reason why you have to get a career is because you need a paycheck. Why do you need a paycheck? You need a paycheck because of these things: electricity, water, food, clothes, car, gasoline, and many others. And most of you will be getting married and you have children, and you're going to need diapers, formula, account for going to college someday, trips with the family. These things will all come to you eventually. So I encourage them to get their career. And so that's what I do for my student program. And I'd like to end now because I went a long time already. So I have a couple of stories I want to tell. The first one is about me being a Catholic, and Catholics believe in Lent. And every year we do, for 40 days, we give up one thing and we do something positive. So last Lent, I gave up peanuts. I love peanuts. I gave it up. Positive thing, I'll go visit the old folks. Challenge. You go old folks home, they gather them in the living room. I'm a comedian. First 10 minutes, they're sleeping. And then when they get up, I'm almost done. They say, is that all? I was on my 4th old folks home, halfway to Lent, did not touch a peanut. And so they were bedridden. I had to go from room to room. I was hungry. 4 hours. Usually I just take 20 minutes. I got to the last room, Portuguese lady. Dilema, tell me one joke, my back's sore. So I told her a joke. While she was laughing, the corner of my eye caught this huge jar of peanuts. The devil was there. I tried not to look. I told her another joke. While she was laughing, I looked at the peanuts. I kept looking, my mouth drooling. I'm so hungry. She said, Dilema, you like peanuts, help yourself. You keep looking over there. I said, I cannot. I gave it up for Lent. She says, you come over here, make us laugh, forget our pain. Eat the bloody peanuts, God no care. I ate 3/4 of the jar. I told her, Mary, here, you better have some, because I'm going to eat them all. Eat one, might as well eat them all. Go in purgatory anyway. So, she says, no, I cannot. I gave it up for Lent. But it's easier for me She says, because I'm allergic to peanuts. I said, allergic? Then I'll come and get all these peanuts in your room. She says, oh, my family, they bring chocolate-covered peanuts. I eat the chocolate, put the peanut in the jar. My final thing is I'm going to sing a song. Hawaii, we're so proud of Bruno Mars, and he had a big hit called Just the Way You Are. And he sings about a girl, the face, the eyes, the hair, the smile. And I just made 65, and I was driving along on my birthday, and that song was playing. And you know me with parodies. I love changing words and talking about what's ever happening. I got a song for each governor. Well, not you yet. I'm still working it. The pen is always waiting, okay? So, at any rate, I thought I want to describe myself at 65. And it's perfect, that song. Talk about my hair, my eyes, and so forth. So it goes like this. My eyes, used to see 20/20. My hair, I used to have real plenty. But now I'm 65, and that's the way things are. My pecs, Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa. But now they drooping, couple inches toward the floor. It all comes naturally, 'cause that's the way things are. I grew, and I grew. It must have been from all the rice and Portuguese stew. But now I'm on a diet, so this is what I say. When you see my face, you see senior discounts all over the place. It's amazing, that's the way things are. And when you see me smile, you know I going Las Vegas with Hawaiian miles. It's amazing, everybody. That's the way things are. God bless all of you. www.frankdelima.com. Hire me. Bye.
Right, will the House come to order? Well, De Lima hasn't missed a beat, has he? Is still the great man he always was. Right, the main event. Anyway, first I would want to make some introductions, and if I can go on and with the introductions here. I would like to introduce, first of all, Governor Ige and Mrs. Ige, Mrs. Ige. Lieutenant Governor Tsutsui. Chief Justice Reckenwald. OHA Chair Robert Lindsay, and Governor Ariyoshi and Mrs. Ariyoshi, and Governor Wahe and Mrs. Wahe, Governor Cayetano and Mrs. Cayetano, and Maui Mayor Alan Arakawa, and Hawaii County Mayor Billy Kenoi. I would also like to introduce the former Congressman Ed Case. And former Honolulu Mayor Mufi Hanneman and Mrs. Hanneman. Governor Abercrombie. Yeah, I know. And we have with us, and I'm sorry if I delayed here, my old friend, Governor Neil Abercrombie. With us today are also representatives from our congressional delegation, our county council chairs, members of our military, and members of our consulate. And also I would like to introduce special guests, which include Massachusetts Representative Byron Russian and Mrs. Russian. Right. And also our good friends, members of the Fukuoka General Assembly. Please rise. Oh, over there. With our newly elected governor with us today, I would like to welcome him and all of you to the People's House. With great pride, we call this chamber the People's House because the members of this body, more than any other branch of state government, represent the people. In his inaugural address, Governor Ige talked about the importance of that simple idea. He said to remember that this is not his house, not our house, but the people's house. It is advice worth remembering as we begin this legislative session. The governor also called on all of us to work together, that no one person can do the heavy lifting to carry us toward our goals. As a former legislator, the governor understands how important collaboration is in bringing many views and options to the table. However, coming together is no easy task, especially when issues can be so divisive. As we all know, the devil can be and always be found in the details. So how do we get from here to there, from the present to the future? I think the governor said it best at his inauguration. To move into the future, we must bring as many people and ideas to the table as possible. The best way to do that is by doing the hard work that makes a difference in their lives. When people see results, they get excited and want to be part of the solution. Last year, I asked you to be bold in tackling some very difficult issues. And you answered the call by increasing the minimum wage, by fixing HCDA, and taking care of the state's unfunded liability. Thank you for having the courage to tackle those and other issues in the past session. But that was yesterday and yesterday's achievements. This morning, we must begin to take care of today's business with the same determination and boldness. That doesn't always involve sweeping or pioneering gestures. Sometimes it just means doing the nitty-gritty work that allows government to function more efficiently and our families to pursue their dreams. For example, we should complete the job of ensuring that affordable health care is available to all our families. Even if we disagree, all stakeholders need to stay engaged. There is no room for those who want to leave because the game gets tough. Because it's not just a game. Not to the families who depend on good health care to grow and prosper. For them, we stick it out. Collaboration is never easy. If it was, everyone would be doing it. But if we are to finish the job of providing universal health care, then all stakeholders must come to the table with an open mind and be willing to work hard for that goal. We should also focus on our public hospitals, which is one of the largest public health systems in the country. It is also the safety net for acute care and long-term care for the neighbor islands. For those families, there is no other choice. Therefore, it's important that we ensure that those facilities are there for them. And if that means thinking outside the box, then maybe it's time we do just that. Maui Memorial and Hawaii Pacific Health are looking at a public-private partnership that could improve health care on Maui and generate savings for the taxpayers. It behooves us to study this opportunity carefully and look at legislation for this and other potential partnerships. We must also ensure the well-being of those who have unique health issues and who require a little more compassion from us. I'm speaking of those who need better access to medical marijuana. Yes, it's legal in Hawaii, but there is no legal access to it. The time has come to fix this contradiction. The task force we commissioned last session has said as much. So let's do what we should have done 15 years ago. Moving into the future also means preparing our children for that future. All the studies tell us that early education is key to developing lifelong learners and successful citizens. As the state continues to look at the more costly task of a public preschool program, there is much we can do to foster early learning in the meantime. Last year, we made kindergarten mandatory for children who will make 5 by July 31st. Yet, we know there is still a small group of late-born who are falling through the cracks and whose families face financial hardships. I believe we can go a long way in remedying this situation by allowing all 5-year-olds to enter the kindergarten regardless of the month in which they were born. It is something worth exploring. And moving into the future means making Hawaii more energy self-sufficient. It means having the peace of mind knowing that your company's bottom line or your family's budget won't be hurt because of the spike in the price of oil, of crude oil. The handwriting has been on the wall for some time now. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or an electric company to know that we need to be more aggressive in weaning ourselves of fossil fuel. We need to help our businesses and our households move in a direction of conservation and sustainability. It is imperative that our biggest energy provider understand this as well. Hawaiian Electric has been a part of this community for more than 100 years. They have been a key player in our past, and they play a critical role in the unfolding of our future. We will be watching closely to what happens on this front. Moving into the future means planning wisely for that future. It means that ensuring that we build enough affordable homes for our families and growing cities in ways that make sense for transportation, economic development, and our limited natural resources. Transit-oriented development is a term you'll probably be hearing a lot. Basically, it will help us direct growth along our rail stations, encouraging commercial development around them, and building affordable neighborhoods on nearby state lands. Directing growth in this way will also protect open space and agriculture, as well as minimize times when we are forced to choose between growth and environment. Ensuring that rail is built on time and on budget will be the key to helping us do all of this. And so we'll be holding the city's feet to the fire and closely scrutinize its request to extend the GET tax for rail. Last year, GMOs became one of the most controversial topics of the session. The issue will not go away and will require the same bold action that I asked from you earlier. Leaving it to the courts will not resolve the stalemate that has paralyzed us on this issue. Whether you trust in science or your own conscience, GMOs are not just about locally grown food. They are a fact of modern life throughout the nation and the world. And nothing we can do in Hawaii will change that. So the discussion should not be about permitting or banning GMOs. Rather, we should discuss how to facilitate choice and an open market allow us individually decide which we want to consume, GMO products or not. I believe that's an issue we can tackle with a good chance of possible success. Moving into the future means making sure we have a safe place for our children and families by strengthening our gun control laws and curbing domestic violence. In addition, providing safe communities includes having an adequate prison system. OCCC is an outdated and misplaced facility that needs to be reassessed. There is thought that we can lease the land on which it sits and use the money to expand and upgrade the Halawa facility. We should investigate that option, as well as others, including upgrading Maui's prison. In addition, we should look at broader reforms to reduce the prison population and make Hawaii's prison system more efficient. And I'm speaking to the judiciary. The recommendations outlined in the Justice Reinvestment Initiative Group in 2012 is a good starting point. Finally, moving into the future means remembering who we are. What makes us who we are in Hawaii. As you all know, our perspective and focus of attention in this building are usually fairly broad. It is not so much about the other guy, but about all of us as a community and a state. It is about our sense of aloha, our common direction, and our collective destination. It's about how we can get there without leaving anyone behind. members, I look forward to working with all of you this coming session. I look forward to taking advantage what has always been Hawaii's greatest strength, our diversity of people and of ideas to forge one's bright future. And I look forward to letting the rhetoric settle, rolling up our sleeves, and getting down to work in a workmanlike fashion. And to all of you, mahalo, aloha, and God bless. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. But thank you very much. And now if we can go to Representative Fukumoto Chang and listen to the minority leader's remarks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and welcome to our many distinguished guests. I'd like to start, first of all, by personally thanking my family and the people of Mililani for the opportunity to serve in this body. I wouldn't be here today without your sacrifices and support. On behalf of myself and my colleagues, I also want to thank every single person in our state for casting your vote in the last election. This is your house, and I thank you for taking ownership of it. Finally, I'd like to thank our staff for all of your hard work, particularly those staffers who serve in the House Minority Research Office. Less than 3 years ago, I was sitting in that very office, writing the minority leader's speech for him, and resenting the many long, sleepless nights that we staffers need to spend in this building. No one understands better how much work you do, and I'm so thankful to have every one of you on our team. Now, Mr. Speaker, I speak to you as the leader of the Minority Party. It is the tradition to use these remarks to look ahead and to share the Minority Caucus's thoughts on how this institution will help make a better life for the people of our state. First and foremost, I will start by stating that we, the Minority Party, are committed to creating a government that meets the needs of everyday people. We've got a lot of good ideas, Mr. Speaker. You're going to hear about them in speeches, you're going to see them in committee, you're going to read them in bills that are signed and delivered to your door. We'll probably even pester you a little bit to ask you to listen to our ideas. And my only request, Mr. Speaker, is that you will continue to listen to the minority and to the people that have elected us. Mr. Speaker, many of the minority's priorities are consistent with yours and the governor's. Instead of creating new programs, we see a need for this body to focus on strengthening our existing programs, addressing our state's hospitals and healthcare needs, tackling our high cost of living, and increasing transparency and openness in government. But Mr. Speaker, this is only half the picture. Mr. Speaker, I'm the first minority leader in this body that is a member of the millennial generation. We were the generation most hit by the Great Recession, and we are the generation leaving in droves for better opportunities on the mainland. Now, with a potential Army reduction on the horizon, it is critical that this body start addressing our state's economy. Jobs are what matter to people, Mr. Speaker. Jobs are what matter to my generation, and they're what matter to our parents. Our constituents want to know that we're doing something real to make their lives better. Here at the legislature, we spend a lot of time talking about creating jobs and diversifying the economy, but in truth, this legislature has done very little about it. Our people don't always believe in us, Mr. Speaker. This past election, only 35% of those eligible to vote in the state of Hawaii actually voted. They didn't believe that their participation would gain them new job opportunities. They didn't believe that it would make their bills any easier to pay. Simply put, they just didn't believe that their vote would make a difference. The minority party in this legislature is committed to changing that. Mr. Speaker, we don't have a coalition anymore. There's no formal seat at the table for the minority party. But I would ask my colleagues across the aisle to remember that the minority party isn't here as a token adversary or as a reminder of the strength and power of your establishment. The minority party is here to provide diversity of thought and a voice that doesn't represent the status quo. It's the diversity that you just mentioned. If you allow that diversity, if you include it, if you value it, then this body will make stronger legislation that can make people's lives better in real, tangible ways. Only then will we have a true democracy and a reason for the people of our state and the people of my generation to have faith in their government, and a reason to believe that their voice, even if it's in the minority, can make a difference. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. God bless you, God bless my colleagues, and God bless our state.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you. Representative Psyche for the majority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have 3 things to say today, hopefully in 3 minutes. First, as alluded to by the Republican leader, thank you to the residents of our respective communities who have given us the privilege to represent them in the legislature. Second, I want to briefly explain what I believe the role of the House Democratic Caucus is this year. More than ever, we need to be a constructive problem solver. This is important because the challenges before us impact the daily well-being of virtually all residents in our state. We know what those challenges are: healthy people, more local food, reliable public utilities, modern prisons, educated students, and affordable housing, just to name a few. We take these matters seriously, and we will work purposefully with the governor, the Republican caucus, the Senate, the counties, and all stakeholders to resolve them. Number 3, we need more public involvement at the legislature. I will admit that the confusing legislative sausage-making process does not help matters. So I'd like to use an analogy to simplify and explain the legislative process. If you look around, the House chamber resembles an orchestra pit. This orchestra consists of 51 musicians. The musicians are diverse, but each has a role to play within the larger body. The speaker is the conductor, and it is the speaker's responsibility to guide this orchestra so that at the end of the day, there is a melody that can be enjoyed by our audience, the general public. Now, having said this, I know that there are some who continue to experience great fear whenever the legislature begins its work. Yes, that was intentional.
That's a hell of a speech.
Some people also believe that the session is too long, which results in mischief. Our session consists of 60 legislative days. When you add in weekends and holidays, the length of our session is equivalent to that of the NFL regular season, which many believe ends too quickly. So, Mr. Speaker, the challenges ahead of us are significant, but it only means that we need to raise the bar and do great work. People want and deserve to be happy. We can and we will use the legislative process to achieve this goal.
Here's a little song I wrote. You might want to sing it note for note. Don't worry. Be happy.
Be happy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members.
Very good. Very good. Well, members and audience, we have begun to think outside the box. Thank you very much, Majority Leader. And Representative Psyche, down back to business.
Mr. Speaker, I have a House resolution laying on the clerk's desk for action.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk.
House Resolution Number 5, sending messages that the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature has assembled and is ready to transact business. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, that messages be sent to the Honorable David Ige, Governor of the State of Hawaii, and to the Senate of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii in regular session assembled, that the House of Representatives of the 28th Legislature of the State of Hawaii, regular session of 2015, has assembled and is ready to transact business with the following officers: Joseph M. Suki, Speaker; John M. Mizuno, Vice Speaker; Brian L. Takeshita, Chief Clerk; Kevin R. Kuroda, Sergeant-at-Arms; Rupert Juarez, Assistant Clerk; and Leonard Peressa, Jr., Assistant Sergeant-at-Arms. This resolution is offered by Representatives Saiki and Fukumoto Chang.
Thank you very much, Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the adoption of said resolution.
Thank you. And Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the House resolution be adopted. Any discussion, members? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those say no, motion is carried. Will the Sergeant-at-Arms please escort the Reverend Blaine Hager to the washroom, please, for the benediction?
Before I begin, let's take a moment to send our thoughts of loving kindness and aloha to Representative Melly Carroll as she leaves this chamber. So please take a moment at this time. Thank you. Good morning and aloha. It's an honor to be here with you to mark the opening of this legislative session. To those members who are returning, welcome back. And to the newly elected members, welcome to the People's House. Welcome to this temple of democracy. Thank you for the sacrifices you will make and for the work that you will do on behalf of the people of Hawaii. And to all those who participate in this process, please be kind to staff. They sacrifice and work hard to ensure that the legislative process does indeed work. As you begin this session, I'm reminded of a teaching from my tradition called Ichigo Ichie, which generally means every day is the first day and the last day of our life. Because we understand the truth of impermanence, we live our life as if today is the first day of our life, and we live it as if it might possibly be our last. This teaching can have a profound impact on how we live each moment of this unrepeatable life. Normally, we go about our lives as if we will somehow live forever. Every day, we wake up, get ready, go to work, see the same people, do the same things, over and over and over again. Our life becomes routine and we take everything in it for granted. We live as if we're running on autopilot with little awareness of ourselves. Now imagine if we lived the teaching of Ichigo Ichie and we didn't take a single moment for granted. We would wake up with a sense of gratitude and wonder for the possibilities of each new day. And we would live with a sense of excitement and vitality. In the same manner, we would also live as if today might be our last. If today was your last day on earth, how would you savor and cherish each moment? How would you treat those you love? How would you like to be remembered? Would you live with a sense of urgency and do all you can to make this world just a little bit better? Your service here is both a privilege and a great responsibility. I hope you will lead with vision, with humility, and with compassion, understanding that the present moment is the only moment we can be certain of. Make the most of this moment. The people of Hawaii are counting on you. May you always live with wisdom, with peace, and with light in all that you do. Namo Amida Butsu. Entrusting the light of great wisdom and compassion. Namandab, namandab, namandab. Best wishes for a productive session. Mahalo.
Yes, before I go on, I forgot to introduce an old friend who was here with the entertainment, Ulu Nakasone. Lindsay, please rise. Oh, trustee. Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend Hager and Representative Saiki.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House stand adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow.
Thank you. Representative Fukumoto Chang.
Mr. Speaker, I second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the House stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned until 12 noon tomorrow. Thank you very much for your attendance. Aloha.
Entry, print, representation, report, book, paper, map, plan, or combination thereof that is in the custody of any department, agency, or government is a public record, and therefore the public has rights to see it, with very few notable exceptions that are clearly delineated. And fortunately, because of some of the efforts of the State Archives, Act 177, which was passed in 2005, allows for the creation, use, and storage of government records in an electronic form. So whether it's originally created electronically or converted electronically, that becomes an authoritative copy, and also needs to be managed in accordance with an approved retention schedule. Are we scared yet? 94-3 authorizes the comptroller to determine the disposition of all state records. And the state archivist is designated to receive requests for disposal and to recommend what actions need to be taken. So if anything received in any form is a public record, this authorizes the destruction of that record. If it's not on this schedule produced by the comptroller, either as a general or a departmental specific, you're not authorized to delete it. So you better know your retentions. And if you don't, we can help with that. Because we can't maintain everything on paper. We have to recognize the beauty of electronic, because if we print everything out, we're very quickly going to get avalanched, and we will run out of office space. So we have to manage these things electronically, we have to do it within a legal framework, and we have to do it in the usual and ordinary course of business. So how do we do that? Well, the emerging trend really is electronic records management systems, electronic document management systems that go by a lot of different names. ECMs, electronic content management. But effectively, they are that intersection, that Venn diagram, the end-all, be-all, beautiful thing of file sharing, document management, records management, and collaboration, the ability to share those things amongst your team members. And what I'm going to talk to you about really is the 4 C's that we need to focus on. This is what we're going to be held to from a legal framework and from a public expectation perspective. And that's control, capture, classify, and compliance. Sounds pretty easy though, right? Hello? Is this thing on? Hello? Okay. Somebody's still there. So in control. And control is really about the management aspects to it. It's defining the types of records that are being created and ideally paralleling those along the retention schedules that you have either specific to your department or to those records that all agencies produce in the usual and ordinary course of business. You're going to hear me say that a lot, usual and ordinary course of business, because that helps you get around any of the legal potholes of, well, how come you didn't destroy anything for 6 months, and then suddenly right before I was going to do a story on your agency, everything got destroyed? That sounds a little fishy, don't you think? So it really needs to be part of an automated or semi-automated process that is done on a regular routine basis. So the management is about organization. It is about the control, about how do you store these things. Have any of you come into a new position and inherited the previous person's computer and looked at their share drive or their C drive and went, I don't understand anything? Because everybody has their own filing system. Some people have no filing system. So how do you have some type of universal, understandable folder structure to be able to put these things in? And what metadata do you capture along with that? Is it a draft? Is it a final? How do you know? Because there's a very important legal distinction between the two. And how do you assign the rights of who can create, who can modify, and who can destroy? Because the last thing you want is a disgruntled soon-to-be ex-employee just go through and go, delete everything. And then you guys have to go to backup drive. And when's the last time the backup tape ran? And have you checked your backup tapes? Because the number of backup routines that actually fail are shockingly high. So unless you do periodic restores to test, you really don't know how well it's working. And when you finally do destroy records, do you keep a track of that destruction? So that you know definitively, yes, we did delete it, and not, well, I don't know what happened to that record, and then have to go pull up backup tapes to look. And then find out maybe you did delete it, maybe you forgot, maybe it was moved, you don't know. So it's important to have that understanding of what was destroyed. The control also gives you policy creations, which really helps tie those things in, and will also work with the paper and the electronic aspects to it as well. And it gives you those rules. Who created it? What type of content is it? What document type is it? What's its retention schedule? How long should it be kept? Because if you know the record only needs to be kept until month-end report roll-up, it's nice to know that so that you can destroy that at the end of the fiscal year, at the end of the biennium, at the end of the calendar year. Have it tell you, hey, this record's eligible for destruction. Can it go? And part of that is what type of metadata is being captured along with that, so that you know what it is and how long it needs to be kept. You know, simple things like that, so that you can comply legally with those requirements. And part of that is identity management. Who created it? A. Jansen. How many of you are going to remember who A. Jansen is 3 years from now? Yet that's the author of the document. That's the person who authorized the destruction. So how do we articulate more specifically than just a login name? And heaven forbid I'm using a shared computer where it's archives 1, that we have that identity management aspect so we can work permissions off of that, so that we can control who sees what they can create, what they can delete, what they can modify, what can be accessed, and what part of the workflow that they have control over. And part of that requires integration with a centralized directory system. Unfortunately, the state as a whole is moving over to a consolidated Active Directory. So we'll have very clear distinction, yet still be able to access the entire directory structure regardless of what agency you're in. So from a capture perspective, it's talking about, are documents created within a specific system, such as a database system? Are they created in Word? Are they emails? Are they paper documents that need to be brought in? So you want to try and get some type of a system that can accommodate across the different types of records and the different types of systems that you're creating. And whether that's a save as into a location or a pop-up, somehow to be able to bring those all in. And when you do bring them in, it's an aspect of classification. And that goes to that retention schedule. How long do these things need to be kept? Do they have information that is personally identifiable and has to be restricted or redacted before it's publicly disclosed? Are these things that are completely exempt from public disclosure for frustration of government, for instance, one of the notable exceptions? And so these classifications should follow your work processes. Not that you're imposing something, but it works in conjunction with the types of work that you do as part of that process flow. So let me give you an example, if you can see that. This is something out of SharePoint, for instance, which is one of the low-level classification systems that really have what the record is, the description of it, what type of a document type it is, and then how long it needs to be kept. And this is built into the system so that when you go file new, it already has all this information built into it itself. So you don't have to make that determination. You don't have to think about, now was this a 3-year record or was this a 5-year record? You just have to know what type of record you are creating, and then the system itself has all that information already baked into it. So anytime you go file new, it's good to go. Because you want to be at compliance. You really want to be there. You don't want to be the cover of the newspaper saying, we submitted this request and it turns out that they destroyed the backup tape. And now we can't report because we don't have the records that we are legally allowed to see. And Hawaii has some very clear laws about the disposition of records. There's no doubt about it. The definition of a record is very broad. Your requirements for managing is very clear, and the exemptions are pretty minimal and pretty tightly written. So it's about being able to add that information in, ideally at creation, to be able to manage that content. So that you can lock the records down and protect them. So that once it is an issued record, there's no going back and changing it. There's no modification capabilities. That you know who created the document in the usual and ordinary course of their business. Because if I'm going into the HR system and creating 401k plans for people, that's probably not a good thing because I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. So you want to make sure it's being done by the appropriate people and provides that audit trail so that when you do delete it, it's been deleted. So that can support the e-discovery process. If we ever are involved in a lawsuit, we've got that trail that we can do those things that we need to do so that we can put holds on records to make sure that they're actually not destroyed or moved or modified if they're going to be used in a court lawsuit, and that any of the modification metadata is always kept. Again, that audit trail so that we have it, so that it is there. And lastly, to be able to provide access. That's yellow. Oh, okay. I got this big yellow square. I'm sorry, I can't see. And to be able to provide access to it. Because ultimately, that's where we are. We want to be able to access it both internally in part of our usual and ordinary course of business, but perhaps as importantly to show that we are good stewards of the people's records. Because the records we create are not ours, they're not the government's, they are the people's. We work on behalf of them and for them. And so they have very clear laws to be able to access and see those records. So if you ever have any question about records, retention, how long things need to be kept, what should be kept, is this even on the retention schedule? When in doubt, ask the archives. This is what we do for a living. You know, that whole obsession circle, that's us with records. We are the record nerds, and we're proud of that. So these are some of the things you need to be concerned about. We're now going to transition into some more solution-based information. And if you have any questions, I'm always available at the archives, and my email is there as well. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for letting me speak today, and for having this in Hawaii, for being here, obviously getting out of Salt Lake City. Not that I'm not easily entertained, but it is pretty nice to be here. Well, we're going to talk about trends, and what are the trends in storage, retention, and compliance. And the first trend is something that you've heard about and heard about and heard about, and that's cloud. Everything's moving to the cloud, cloud first. Cloud requires policies. And so a couple of the policies that I've seen about and spoken about this year at various events is cloud changes the way we maintain records. Some organizations allow you to collaborate in the cloud, do things in the cloud when you're working on documents, but as soon as you need to have it declared a record, they want it pulled out of the cloud and put in an on-premise solution. Not required, but I'm seeing a lot of organizations are just nervous about having information that they deem as records, that they have to establish the chain of custody in the cloud. The other rule that I'm seeing a lot is if there's any personally identifiable information, sometimes referred to by we records people as PII, they don't allow any of that to be in the cloud. And for the various reason is that that's high-risk data that you're responsible for. And if you get hacked, if for some reason something happens, and we just saw that in the Sony hack that occurred last week, the company is responsible. Now, one of the things that I do is I work with people on legacy data cleanup, and we found some tax returns on a server, unencrypted on a server, and we looked at it, and it was a woman whose tax returns were out on their server, and I had everything I needed to steal her identity. I had her address, I had her social security number, I knew how much money she made. It was great if I wanted to steal her identity. Not so much, that's not what I do. The problem is she'd left the company 5 years before. So if you don't do something to clean up your on-premise as well as your cloud solutions, you're just going to move the junk from your on-premise to the cloud, and then you'll have so much data you won't be able to meet the e-discovery requests that Adam was talking about. So cloud becomes important. You want to make sure your cloud solution, those contracts that you have in place, support your needs, and you want to make sure that you have retention and records management, some plan to get those records. The next trend is mobile. And by mobile, it's tablets, phones, whatever it is. People want to be able to access their information. So whatever record solution you put in place, you've still got to allow the end user to access that information without disruption. I always say we want to do compliance and records management in spite of the users. So even though I have end users, I still want a compliant solution. The other thing that I tell users is that if you need an email, a piece of content, a video, an audio file to do your job, then you keep it. But it should be kept, but you don't get to keep it. It needs to be somewhere where it's protected and that you can access it. So we need to get away from digital hoarding, just like the cat lady who has 200 cats. If you have 200 cat videos on your network server, you're hurting your company not just because of the storage it's taking, but because it's costing that organization money. So, you want to be able to keep the right amount of data, and you want to protect that data. Now, another trend we're seeing is data map. And what I mean by a data map is moving to a digital understanding of all of the information in your organization. So what we used to have in records management was a records inventory. So we knew where all the records were, who were the people that created records, that roster of where the records were created and how they physically were going to be received. But a data map is for all content, not just records. It's for every type of content. We want to know where information is. We want to know the servers, who creates it, the type of content it is. And it really provides insight to the type of content that your organization has. Now, at this point in the middle of my discussion, to wake you up, I'm going to try some of the time-released comedy from lunch. Enterprise server? No, you don't remember? ASCII? Okay. Wow, okay. I got thinking, man, we already forgot lunch. It's pretty... So now that we have our data map, which includes all your electronic information, record and non-record, then we want to look at, and the next trend in records really has nothing to do with records, and that is retention on non-records. So this might be a new concept for you, retention. I always say, and I've tweeted this out many times, and if you follow me on Twitter, this is some of the insight you'll get from following on Twitter. Isn't that exciting? But I always say that content should be like dairy. So every piece of content should have an expiration date. Now, some content, the tweets associated with this event or the emails inviting you to this event should have a very short shelf life. They should be like milk, some like cheese, some like ice cream, some like shelf-stable milk that can last for years and years. But everything should go away after a period of time unless it is marked permanent. And you know what the permanent records are. Come on, you know what's permanent. And the emails for this event, not permanent. Okay, just let me help you there. So we want to be able to establish what's called default retention. And what default retention is I'm going to have you create a retention policy for every piece of content. So let's take email. The default retention for email right now in your organization, and I talked to you some of today, was keep forever, right? So you've got the keep forever default retention policy. Well, that's not my favorite policy. Okay, so we're going to work with you. And so I was working with the bank, and they said, all right, we'll do 10 years. Well, if I can get you from forever to 10 years, I felt like that was a personal victory. So the business says we need to keep it 10 years. So we go to records, and the records people say, yeah, the business wants to keep it for 10 years, but by law, this is a bank, by law, we have to keep it for 2 years. So my retention period has to be at least 2 years, but I'm not going to let you keep it more than 10 years. Victory, victory, victory. So then we go to IT and say, now we just want to make sure everything's in sync, that records for 2 years, they want to keep it for 10 years, and IT said, well, that's funny because we've been deleting everything after 90 days. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is, we need to get it to 2 years. We need to do that. But now I've got ammunition to go back and say, look, 10 years might be too long. But even if it is too long, if you still want 10 years, that's a victory that you know at the end of 10 years, unless a legal hold is applied to it, it's going to go away. So we're going to move toward what we call information governance rather than just records management. By having retention associated with non-records, and of course you always have retention associated with records. And finally, my last trend, I am moving toward the end. Wake up, wake up. What did he say? You gotta like rock and roll or something? He said something, I can't remember what it was. But the last trend is social media. Are there records in social media? It depends. Okay, just like everything in life. But the state of Hawaii uses social media. I looked it up. The governor, there's a whole bunch of social media sites. They use Twitter, Facebook. You have a YouTube channel, all of that, LinkedIn. There are hundreds and hundreds of social media sites. These are just some of the typical ones. So the first thing we need to look at is what are the official sites? Now, I work for IBM, no secret, it was announced, and I am not an official tweeter for IBM. Therefore, my tweets are not records. They're my own personal opinion, and therefore they're not captured, and you couldn't sue IBM for my tweets. Same kind of thing. You need to know who the official tweeters for the state of Hawaii are for each department, and those are the things that need to be captured. Now, how are we going to capture those? There are lots of tools. There's Archive, NARA, the National Archives, has released several documents, Google social media and records, and they've released a document on how to determine what a record is. And then they also released a document where they take the 300 solutions for social media capture and list those out. So I would refer you to just Google that. If you can't find that, I'm happy to help you look for it. But social media certainly is something that we need to be aware of and be using, and you may or may not have records. One of the more common things is, do you promise something? So if a bank promises an interest rate, those are obviously records, but do you promise a goods or service? Do you, is it only on your social media feed? Is it on some other website? That can certainly do it. And of course, the rule of thumb is treat it like other website data. So whatever records and retention policies you have for your websites, that's what you want to use for your social media. So in summary, these are my trends, the cloud. So everything's going to the cloud, and you've got to have policies in place to do it. Mobile, you want to be allowed the users to use the tools they have, their phones, their tablets, in order to find information. Also, don't forget the cameras can be a scanner. And we're seeing that more and more as the cameras get better. That can be a mobile capture solution. We have a customer that owns a large ranch in California. They used to have problems with sprinklers or some other problem. They would write up a work report, and at the end of the day, they would drive in and type it into a system. Now they just take a picture of whatever the problem is, and with their tablets, they immediately send out start a work process to get the ticket open and get someone dispatched to fix the problem. It's cut down the time, certainly, because they're not waiting until the end of the day. So that's another use for the mobile, is it's going to be capture. The data map moved from just records management to a data architecture map of all of your information. Default retention, everything gets an expiration date unless it's a record or marked as permanent. And finally, social media. And with that, we'll move into questions. Are there people with questions?
2 nerds, no waiting.
We're here to answer your questions.
And we practice from our morning talk, too. So we're ready for this.
No questions? Did we stun you? Are you stunned in silence? Yes.
Yeah, what is the difference between a record and a non-record?
So, great question. So not everything that gets created is a record. It just depends on if it complies with the records policies. And Adam talked about some of those questions.
And that is a great question. Let me tell you what our view of records are, please. If you want the definition to show you what a records nerd I truly am, off the top of my head, I would have to say that would be any document made or received in the usual and ordinary course of business and set aside as evidence of that activity for future reference. So it doesn't fit that definition. I know, sure. But the key there is it made or received in the usual and ordinary course of business? And do you need it as part of an activity that you participated in? That helps. Is it a record or is it not? Cake in the lunchroom. Does that have anything to do with your usual and ordinary course of business? That makes it kind of non-record material. And so that can get rid of in a much shorter time period. But almost every record produced in the state is on a retention schedule. And those are on the State Archives website that you can have access to. Plus those things that are specific to your department, there's also departmental record schedules that help you make that determination. Is this a record or is it not?
So things that really have limited value, like come to this meeting, or let's meet for lunch, or I'm on vacation next week, those may not be a record. Like I said, the record team is going to help you make that determination. And their value, their shelf life is very short. Whether you're on vacation this week or next week, in 2 years, it's really not going to be that meaningful if we have information, unless we need that for some lawsuit. And that, if we were to need that, it would be under a legal hold and it would be kept regardless of whether it were a record. More questions? See, that wasn't painful. We didn't bite him. Come on.
Bueller.
All right, Adam, I'll ask you a question.
Yes, please.
How long have you been in records management?
I've been in records management since 1994.
Okay.
I started out as a chemical engineering major and decided I wanted something much more fun and adventurous.
More questions? I'm going to have to ask Adam another question, and I'm at a loss here, so I'm thinking. What was I supposed to say? What did he say we were supposed to say when we were thinking? That's a great...
That's a great question. Let me tell you about our view on records management, why I'm thinking about what it is I'm supposed to be saying.
When the pharmaceutical industries opened up social media, they had to address problems like where to put on the website questions about drugs or adverse events. That would then become a possible channel for reporting adverse events, which are kind of regular. So I can understand records out now by somebody tweeting from government, but what about the internet?
Same kind of thing. So for certain industries, so banking, pharmaceutical, other kinds of things, they do capture that information. And that's where capturing it becomes so important, that you have somebody monitoring that, monitoring your use of that company name in tweets. We've seen that with airlines where they didn't monitor and let something go viral, like the broken guitar for a long time, didn't do that. But you're absolutely right, and that's why that capture, that NARA capture document becomes so important, because it tells you how to capture those things. It can be, Twitter can be an excellent customer service tool. I played around with DirecTV for 6 months trying to get a credit when they overcharged me. Finally, I tweeted it out, and within 10 minutes, they were following me, and within 15, they had resolved it. So it's different people. So 6 months to 15 minutes, I kid you not. It's different people, but you have to be monitoring that, and that's where those capture tools come in. The other thing is that on Twitter and with Facebook, there are metadata that are part of that, and you need to make sure that you capture that. With Twitter, there's 150 characters, and that does not include the likes and the retweet names. And so it doesn't matter if something got retweeted 1 million times. Does it matter to your marketing department? It may to the marketing, but not in records management. Those are the kinds of things with a policy, and that capture document can tell you how to capture those tweets. Right now, the tweets and the Facebook posts, the Instagram, those are all in XML, so raw XML. And so you've got to decide, are we going to leave it in raw XML and try and get a viewer, or are we going to convert them to a format? Sometimes people convert them to MSG so they can use their e-discovery tools and their analytic tools they use for e-discovery on those MSG, or sometimes they convert them to an archival format, PDFA. And there's there's history in tweets. The National Archives, or the Library of Congress, is currently archiving every public tweet since 2006, and they think that it will provide insight into history over that period of time. History has always been written by the elites, that is, people who could read and write. And so we're moving on past, of course, reading and writing, although some people are suspect. But they think that it will really give us a common man's view of history. Just take, for instance, the day Robin Williams died. There were over 10 million tweets that day. And when you run analytics on that, you really can get a sentiment of what he meant to people, an insight that we've never really had before. And it talks about all of that, the analytics and the capturing in that NARA document.
And I think an important aspect of that is the policy. Do you allow people to post on your agency Facebook page? Do you allow them to comment on your tweets or what have you? And so something you have to consider is what's the downside of that? Because if it's an informational tool, that's great, but are you opening yourself up to a discussion? And what are the implications of that? And my recommendation is you try not to become responsible for what other people do that you don't have any control over, because you're opening yourselves up to liability in that realm.
Use it for sentiment analysis, not anything more. So let marketing deal with it, but not think it's a record. And you know, some organizations have been slow to move to social media because they're waiting for the court cases to all get settled. That's why a lot of organizations aren't out there yet, because they want more rulings on social media before they get out. They don't want to be trailblazers, especially those banks. They're very conservative. I spoke on social media at the Records Management Conference. Yes, a conference all about records management. I know you want to come. I know you're excited. And I had a woman come up to me after, and she said, our company doesn't use social media. Okay, I'm like, well, that's interesting, because, you know, they were an oil and gas company. And so I took out my phone, I looked it up. They had 5 social media accounts. She was the records manager for that company, the worldwide records manager. And I said, look, you've got 5 accounts. There's one in Saudi Arabia, a couple in the U.S. Look at this one, jobs at this company. Now, anything with jobs generates records. She had no idea they were posting jobs on social media. So
Policy.
You need a policy in place in order to prevent that from happening. Yes, question.
It's more of a comment because I think we have a lot of different definitions in different contexts of different laws. What your definition of records may not be exactly what is in line with the Uniform Information Practices Act in Hawaii. And when you talk about social media discussions, you might start implicating the Sunshine Law in Hawaii. If you're talking about board members tweeting or text, having discussions on their Facebook pages. Right. So you have to be really careful what context you're talking about.
And that's why policy becomes important. How are we going to use this tool? Is it allowable and not? The definition of a record, that is solid. That is a definition that is used for the federal rules of evidence in order to get the business record exemption and have it be submitted as evidence, non-hearsay evidence. So, the definition of a record that I quoted is legally very solid. How you implement that in various tools can be very shady. And I think that the example of using it for meeting discussions is very relevant and very, very dangerous. Because absolutely, if you're using tweets or Facebook to discuss meeting agenda items, that needs to absolutely be kept. And how is it going to affect the open public meeting records laws is a very serious issue, which is why it comes down to, do we use social media? And if so, what are the allowable? And is it being monitored and audited?
Well, and not everyone is an official Twitter or Facebook poster or Instagram poster on behalf of the state. So that's one thing about your policy is you need to know who the official people are. And then also, if you work for the state, you don't give up your right to post in social media. So what is my policy again that's going to allow me to post about lunch, which I did today? Those of you that followed me would know. But, and keep that separate from the true records that exist in the organization.
Because there was the recent election and appointed officials, and my question is that if you're corresponding with the previous administration of directors, deputies, or elected officials, when they change, do you keep those records? And a lot of it were decision-making type of things and correspondence. So I'm just wondering, do you keep it, destroy it?
So the question has to do particularly with the transition between administrations and what happens to the records of the previous administration. So that is a very good question. Let me tell you our view on records retention.
How much time do you have?
So, in short, records retention survives the employee. So if an employee creates a record as part of their job as a state employee, that record from the time of creation has a shelf life that it needs to be kept. If that person leaves, the administration changes, is completely irrelevant into how long that record needs to be kept.
And did you hear shelf life? That is not kept forever. There's a shelf life.
And it also is not destroyed when they leave their position. So regardless of who created it, what administration, those records need to be adhered to the retention schedule that's most appropriate to that set of records. Does that make sense?
Yes, in a way.
So just because you leave the organization or leave the state does not mean your records go away with you.
Yeah.
They have retention periods where they will be retained for that period of time.
And I can't give you a concrete answer because each record is unique. You can't say, well, this person, everything they have is permanent, or this person never creates a record. It's the content of that record that really drives its retention. Now, the higher up the food chain you go, the chances of your correspondence, emails, being of permanent value continually increase. But that's not always the case. So it needs to be dealt with, and it's best dealt with by the creator. You know, for those of you who manage IT systems, how many of you could go into a financial database and say, oh yeah, that's a permanent record because I know exactly what that is? It's really the creator that is the best assessor of its value and which retention schedule it applies to. But there is no, well, all these emails need to be kept.
Comment over here. Well, and also in Hawaii, under the Uniform Information Practices Act, you have the records report system, the RRS, where as you create classes of records, you're supposed to be identifying what kind of record is it? Is it going to be publicly disclosable? Is it confidential? Is it a mixture of each? Who's the record keeper? Where do the records exist? All those things are supposed to be entered at the time of creation. DAGS has the default schedule for retention. Don't get confused between disclosure and retention. So DAGS has a schedule. If your agency doesn't already, it has a schedule, you know, for different types of records, how long you're supposed to keep each type of record. And then the UIPA in Hawaii would govern state and county disclosure of government records. And you might have exceptions to disclosure. In the case you're bringing up, it might be subject to the deliberative process privilege. So it might have to be retained, but it might not be disclosed.
And if I can interrupt, that is a very important distinction. Just because it is exempt from public disclosure doesn't mean it's not supposed to be kept. There are a lot of records, and particularly those that are exempt, are very important records that are absolutely on a retention schedule and need to be kept for that. You don't let the public have access to it, but the court may need access to it. So
once the reason for disclosure goes away, then maybe it has to be disclosed, like executive session minutes. They may eventually have to be disclosed to the public.
Other questions? I don't want to let you out early. Come on.
You know, it's always rough being the speakers right after such a wonderful, first off, lunch, and then an amazingly funny speaker, and then it's like, let's talk about records retention.
And why didn't you have more jokes? I can't believe you failed us this way.
I'm sorry.
Is there a question?
Well, I am wondering, because actually you can retrieve things that have been disposed. Is there some kind of policy for that?
Now, there's a couple of things. So there may be an active record period, and then it comes to the point where it gets disposed, and the disposal could be sent to our archive for historical purposes. It's not a record, but it's the history of the state. Or it could be an actual disposal, and the disposal would be it goes away, and it goes away, it's eliminated or disposed of. It just depends on, again, what that policy is. I work with a big fruit company in Cupertino, California, and they want to keep all of the emails associated with their former CEO. And it's no records there. Some of them are records, but they're really at the end of their retention. But for historical purposes, they think they're going to allow that in 10 years or 20 years. They'll allow researchers to have access to that information. So it's not a records per se. They were records at one time, but there's historical information there that they want to keep. And that's a very important distinction to make, is just because it was a record once, just because it was classified top secret, confidential, it wasn't disclosed, doesn't mean eventually it might not move to the archive. It may not go away. Moving to the historical value, moving to a museum or to a state archive for historical purposes is a valid disposal option.
So there's a couple very interesting particulars in your statement. You heard me use the term usual and ordinary course of business. So if a record reaches the end of its retention, and I may have a slight disagreement with my esteemed speaker, a record is always a record. A record has a retention of how long it needs to be kept at a minimum, but it never says you must destroy it at that time period. You always have the option of keeping it longer if you deem it an acceptable risk to continue to maintain that record. If you haven't, whether or not it has exceeded its retention, if you have it and you are sued, you have to turn it over. If you have a record of destruction, and in the usual and ordinary course of business, this record which met its retention and I destroy, then you're off the hook. There's not a court case yet that I've been able to find that made you go to a backup tape that is exclusively disaster recovery, that is only made for catastrophic system destruction, to go get a record that was destroyed in the usual and ordinary course of business. So the key there is if you keep it, it has to be disclosed. So don't keep things longer than you have to, because you're just making more work for yourself in many, many ways. And if you do destroy it, it's best to have a record of its destruction to prove why you no longer have it.
It's actually very hard to really destroy.
Absolutely. What it is forensically, yes, I can go into your hard drive, and unless you've overwritten it 3 times, I can forensically go and retrieve it. But the courts don't make you do that if, in a usual and ordinary course of business, you have destroyed the record. They understand that. They're not going to make you go through this insane, arduous task of having to retrieve a record that you destroyed as part of your business.
I would agree, selfies aren't forever.
That's right.
I'm not beautiful, so no.
Unless you're in Europe where Google has to allow you to get rid of your history. Other questions?
And I have another comment. Because you're talking about in the context of litigation and what the courts will require you, they'll go into the metadata and everything. Under the UIPA, we don't require you, we don't consider metadata to be records, not at this point. So we wouldn't require you to go back and recreate emails that were already destroyed. We just say the records that you have to produce, if you're requested for them, would be those that you maintain. Whether you can download them from your computer or you have already created a paper copy and put it in your file, that's something that maintain and would have to produce. But if it was only kept in your computer and it's been destroyed, under the UIP would not get into what was the metadata behind it and go back and recreate it. That would be possible maybe under a court order. So remember the distinction. What are we talking about here?
Questions?
All disaster recovery backups have been the usual course of business.
There's some interesting legal debate about that. If your and this is very important to all of you, if your disaster recovery tapes are exclusively disaster recovery, protection against catastrophic system failure, then you have some level of protection against having to go into it to retrieve a deleted record. If, on the other hand, the opposing team can find any evidence of, I deleted this record by mistake, can you go up into the backup tape and get it for me? You do that, you've now opened up all of your disaster recovery tapes to disclosure.
And your policy should be to get rid of them, not keep them very long.
And again, disaster recovery, catastrophic system failure only, not protect against somebody being stupid and hitting the delete button when they really shouldn't. If you ever go back and pull something off because somebody accidentally deleted something, you're opening yourself up to a world of hurt.
Your policy should be that it went away, and you shouldn't have old tapes. I was telling someone at lunch, I went to a telecommunications company, and they had 250,000 backup tapes in a storage room. Tape is not a good storage media. It breaks down, and it's really not good for records and retention.
Disaster recovery. Every quarter, you get rid of the old ones. You've got your new ones. Catastrophic failure only.
So again, policy becomes important. One more question. Who wants to give it to us? Come on, you know you want to. Okay, right here.
Excellent question.
92F.
Excellent question.
92F has the 6 classifications? 7?
They have a list of exceptions plus some things that are automatically not disclosable. Other things that have to be disclosed. So if you have a question, call one.
And it will be in the RRS database.
That's enough.
And it is also, in some cases, noted on the retention schedule as well, particularly for departmental.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I have business cards if anyone wants my card, and then we'll also be at the social. So come talk to us if you have more questions. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.